dias, good morning. Happy September, everyone. I hope you are well, staying positive and focused on what you can control. My name is Patricia Mota, currently serving as President and CEO for the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement, a national nonprofit organization whose mission is to positively impact workplaces by cultivating the pipeline of Latino talent, providing Latinos the insight, access, and development to be successful in their careers. A few reminders for those of you joining us, or maybe it's your first time joining us today. We have a career coaching program that we are currently accepting applications until September 6th. So if you are in transition in your career, looking to get promoted, looking to connect with someone to guide you along the way, this is an excellent opportunity to meet with amazing coaches that we work with across the country. And also, if you're looking for your next opportunity, we do have our tech recruitment series today. We have CDW, Zebra, T-Max, and Cash App recruiters that are wanting to connect with you and network with you. So that's taking place today, this afternoon. So look at the aceonline.org website for more information. And lastly, don't forget to reach out to ACE for your Hispanic Heritage Month plans. We are here to support you with your professional development, with Latino cultural awareness, and most importantly, celebrating this month. Without further ado, I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest. Please continue to engage as you usually do. Ask your questions, have your comments ready to engage with Yemi. Yemi Akisanya is the Global Head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Groupon. Buenos dias, Yemi. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. I'm not prepared to respond in Spanish, so I should have prepared better, Patricia. But listen, I should get myself ready. Good morning. First of all, your energy is phenomenal. We're gonna blow through the screen because this is my second coffee and I'm ready to go. So,
well, salud, cheers. Good
salud,
morning.
cheers.
So you know the drill, Yemi. So Cafecito con Ace, our first question for our guests is, how do you like your coffee prepared or your morning beverage of choice?
Yeah, so I am very boring with mine. I am a coffee black type of person, kind of like how I like my scotch or my whiskey. I want it neat with nothing in it. So this is a black coffee and it serves me well.
Well, enjoy the coffee. And I hope those of you tuning in have your cafecito, your morning beverage of choice to engage in this conversation. Again, share, have your comments and questions ready. Yemi, please share with our guests your cultural, your professional background with us. I think it's always critical for us to get to learn from others, their stories, their trajectories, and you're shared some information with us that we have on the screen. So you all get to do some reading along the way with this beautiful picture that you have shared with us as well.
Oh, no, thank you, Patricia. So, you know, my background, I was born in Chicago by Nigerian parents who were immigrant parents, right? So my parents were born and raised in Nigeria. They were in college, came to the U.S. in the late 60s to get their, further their education, had 4 children. I became the youngest of the 4. When I was barely 2 months old, Patricia, my family moved back to Lagos, Nigeria. So I spent from 2 months to 14 years old in Lagos. And I remember coming back to the U.S. at 14, where I went to high school at Thornwood High School in south suburbs of Chicago, for those who know that. And then I played sports there, played soccer, played American football. And then I went to college at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. I got an IT degree. And then I got into the job market. And I worked for, some jobs here and there, but I ended up at Chase, JP Morgan and Chase, doing some IT work. And then I ended up at the CME, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, doing some work there as well. And then I ended up at the OCC, Options Clearing Corporation, where I got a chance to meet you, Patricia, and got introduced to ACE. And then I'm currently a Groupon. So my career has kind of grown over the past, number of years. And the picture here is my beautiful, beautiful, amazing daughter, Annabella Tinoade Akisanya. And she's wearing one of our traditional garbs, and we call it Ankara, which is the material, but it's also known as native. It's known as kaftan. In my language, which is Yoruba, it's known as buba and shokoto. And there's my daughter and I. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
I love it. Thank you for sharing this visual and a little more insight in terms of who you are, Yemi. I think this is amazing. I'm seeing Game of Thrones on there. You know, I know a lot of our folks tuning in are that big fans of that as well. Beautiful picture of you and your daughter. And there's some of the 4 things that I didn't know about you. Look.
Yeah. I can run through them real quickly. So the first one is my dad's dad. Potentially, this is a true story. My dad's dad was a king in Nigeria many, many years back in Ijebu-Isha. You can Wikipedia him. It's very interesting. Anyway, here's a fun fact. He had 44 children and 9 wives. And my father is, I think, is the fourth child of the first wife, and he's so proud of that. It's a thing to be the child of a first wife. Anyway, so Google him, Wikipedia him. It's about Yemi Akisanya. And then I played football in college. I think I mentioned that. And I went diving with sharks about 3 years ago when I was in Cape Town for a business school trip at Kellogg. We took a trip to Cape Town for a social impact course, and I went diving with sharks. And if you know anything about me, Patricia, I am very risk adverse. But we were in a really still cage, so I was fine. The last one was, yeah, the last ones are not together. We never got a chance to meet in person, but he was actually tailing behind me, and that was just a proud moment.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your background. I know many of us can relate on so many levels, but you know, in terms of the immigrant story, in terms of those alum that we have from Kellogg or SIU that are tuning in, and then those of us that may be in tech, right, or looking to get into a tech field. So I know I'm throwing this one in there, Yemi, and those of you tuning in, have your questions and your comments ready. How did you know, you did major in it, but how did you get to Groupon, being, you know, kind of the tech giants out there, and just in general in terms of your career?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I'll try to get through it quickly. So, you know, I started my career in tech. I was a quality assurance analyst. I was doing software testing, and then I got a job at this company called Options Clearing Corporation, OCC, where I was doing testing for them as well. And I remember meeting a gentleman. His name is William Rail. We call him Bill. He's no longer at OCC now, but he was a business analyst, and he was just this subject matter expert. I mean, he was smart, intelligent. You know, he knew all the information all the time. We went to him for questions, and I'm like, how can I be like that guy? So I talked to Bill, and Bill was like, hey, listen, you have IT background. Yemi, consider getting some kind of communications degree that can help booster your thing. So I did that. I went to Northwestern back then, got a degree, a master's in communication. And then 6 months into the program, I got promoted into a BA role on his team. So I became a BA. And then, you know, long story short, I had a chance to meet with the CEO and the chairman. He's still the chairman now, Craig Downey. He was CEO at the time as well. And he became a great mentor for me. And so one of the things I tell folks is that seek out mentors. And also as a mentor, or as an individual who's been in the industry for a while, seek out mentees. And it was that relationship that kind of helped me get to going back to school to get my business school degree at Kellogg with his support and OCC support. And then about a few months into the opportunity, the role at OCC came up to head DEI and build the DEI office at the company, something that had never been done before. And I've worked very closely with non-for-profits like HACE and IC Stars. And I sit on the board of IC Stars where Sandy Castro is the founder. And my mentor knew about that. He's like, well, Yemi, I know you're passionate about this work. How could you help bridge the two, being, tenured at OCC at the time and having passion for this work? And that's how it connected. And then I did the work at OCC for about 2.5 years or so. And then John Higginson, who's the chief technology officer here at Groupon, him and I had met in community work, working closely with IC Stars and others. And he's like, hey, we connected. There was opportunity at Groupon. We spoke. Next, I'm here at Groupon, looking to continue to do the same on a global scale. And as you mentioned, IT is one of our biggest functions here at Groupon. And so for those on the call who have any interest in IT, especially think about Groupon. We'd love to hear from you. And feel free to ping me if I could give any help to you on your journey on LinkedIn or wherever.
Yemi.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think that's great. You mentioned a couple key points that I want to highlight, right? You mentioned that there was a leader that you admired and you reached
yeah,
out saying, "Hey, I want to be just like you," and how that
yeah.
individual was supportive of that and willing to give you advice, right? So to all of those that are tuning in, think about those role models or those leaders that you envision, yourself getting to become, or that you admire, and don't hesitate and to let them know, right? Because folks are usually willing to lend a hand or give you advice, and I think sometimes it's a little easier said than done to ask, but hey, look, through stories like Yemi's, you can see that it makes a difference. And then the second thing that I wanted to highlight, Yemi, was regarding you being involved in the community, right? And how that leads to opportunities. You're building relationships. They're getting to see your work ethic, your contributions, that you never know through those relationships and those network what opportunities will present themselves. And now here you are leading a global DEI role at Groupon,
Yeah.
and you're one of our 3 featured speakers for US's biannual Chief Diversity Officer Roundtable that's taking place. I can't believe it. Next week already.
Isn't that crazy? Time's flying.
Time is flying, and here we are, September. So tell us give us some insight. And the room is comprised of DEI leaders from US's partners across the country, some in HR that are also supporting DEI. So we're excited because we get to hear from you, from 2 others that are going to share some insight and a best practice. So what insight can you share with us in terms of what you would be sharing during that roundtable?
Yeah, no, and before I go there,
Yeah.
can we give you some credit, please? I feel like you're being too humble here. I'm sure folks know you already, but I want to first of all say thank you, right? It's people like you that reach out to people like me and provide an audience and a platform for us to share our stories. And that's what you're doing for me. So thank you so much for the invitation. And I hope I don't embarrass you.
No,
But
you're welcome. Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to it because first and foremost, I look forward to learning. I think, like you mentioned, you have 2 great other speakers. I think Catherine Medina, who works for the Fed, and her and I have worked very closely together on the financial services pipeline. So I'm very familiar with how to build financial services pipeline or diverse financial services pipeline. I think the other person was Monica, who authored the book From Intent to Impact, which I think is so powerful, as I've talk often around how we should think more about our impact rather than just focus simply on our intent, right? We think of good intentions and we care less about the impact, but I think there's a balance between those 2. For me, my topic would be focused more on embracing authentic leadership in the workplace. Something that I think is really challenging, but something I also think is critically important, as we've seen the uprising in civil unrest around our communities, and it's spilling in. I mean, it has come in full throttle within our workplaces. So how can we begin to shed away from that corporate voice, that politically correct voice, and begin to be more genuine in how we come into the office, which might in many cases feel uncomfortable, but it needs to encourage bravery. It needs to encourage a sense of being truly inclusive. So that's the topic. I'm going to be talking about embracing authentic leadership in the workplace, and talking about some of the risk that it presents and how we can begin to mitigate those risks.
Yeah, and why do you believe like the spaces like this that are so critical? I always, when I'm talking to leaders such as yourself in this space, and we're hearing the acceleration of initiatives, right, that happened within the past 18 months, and the added, workload, the, and the stress that came along with that, right? Whether it was, health, mental as well. But why do you think, right, so that I think that one is like the much needed support network to be able to lean on one another. But what else would you say?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And listen, Patricia, here's the thing. There's a thing called covering that we all have. Yourself, myself, each one of us brings into a workplace where we leave Yemi at home, and I come into the office both virtually and physically in a way that's not truly representation of all of me, right? Whether it's I had a hard day this morning with the kids, or whether whatever the situation might be going on, maybe something happened in my community, I lost a parent or a friend, or the impact to our community as a whole, like what we saw with George Floyd last year. And there's expectation to say, forget all that you're worried about and come into the office and just be this person we want you to be. But it's getting difficult and difficult each single day. And I think corporations has a responsibility to ensure that we are providing our colleagues with an opportunity to be their whole selves.
Mm-hmm.
Their full authentic selves allows us to thrive as a company. And so there is a disconnect. And I think what we saw in the uprising last year brought that to the forefront. And I think, I'm so excited that there are leaders like you and many others in this space are doing their job to ensure that we provide a voice where those who are being unheard and are seen are getting the chance to fully bring themselves to work. So that's my spiel about that, and I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we'll take any questions. I think we have more comments than anything. We have Ariel who's sharing, a comment regarding excellent work, Yemi. Leading a BRG. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and value on mentorship and authenticity, right? It's so critical more than ever before. And I always tell all of our corporate partners that that needs to be accelerated, especially with Gen Z now coming into the workforce. Expectations and what they're looking from their employer are on another level, right? So we have a question: and how and when do we engage marginalized communities of people who are underrepresented in STEM, or the other acronym, this is science, technology, engineering, mathematics. The other one that we see quite a bit is STEAM, which is adding in the arts as well.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question, and I can share my story quickly here in maybe 15 seconds. Listen, folks, I love this question. Is so great because whoever asked this question is doing exactly, you're doing it right now, right? Like, reaching out to non-for-profits such as HACE, who are doing phenomenal work in this regard. Reach out to Patricia and say, hey, how can I be helpful? Is there an advisory board? Is there a community? Is there a subgroup I can be a part of to kind of help this work? For me, it was being part of IC Stars some 6 years ago, where I reached out and said, hey, listen, I want to be part of some type of advisory board group or committee where I can help plan. And that was my connection with it. And then next thing you know, it became so valuable for me. And it's so part of my DNA now that that's my identity, is how can I begin to use, forgive me, my privilege, right? Because we all have them. How can I, first of all, recognize my privilege, and two, use that towards supporting marginalized groups like Black and Brown communities and amongst many others. So I think it's a matter of, like, there's so many great non-for-profits out there in your local area. Start locally, and you can grow naturally from there.
Yeah. Great question. Great insight, Yemi. And we are nearing our time. So I always have to be the bad guy that wraps us up. But my last question for you to share with our audience, and those of you tuning in, please reach out to Yemi on LinkedIn. And my last question, Yemi, for you to share with us is, what are you most hopeful for the remainder of this year?
Oh, it's a great question. And I thought about this. And what I would say is I want to share data with you. And then I think that sums up my reason. According to LinkedIn, right, the number of people globally with the head of diversity title more than doubled over the last 5 years, right? Over 107% in growth. That truly excites me. It gives me hope because it tells me that there are more people like you, Patricia, and me and others who are in positions to seek out and find the voices that have been unheard of in a very, very long time. So that excites me. I'm looking forward to that.
We're bringing our underrepresented voices to the light in greater strides more than ever before. Yemi, gracias. Thank you. Thank you for you tuning in. Hasta la próxima. Until next time.
Ciao. Thank you.
Bye-bye.